Good viewer, you are watching XIRTUS. This is because XIRTUS makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch XIRTUS for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to XIRTUS, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about XIRTUS. Your friends will come to like XIRTUS, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to XIRTUS. See, that was easy.
The following video contains content some viewers might find disturbing. The views and opinions expressed here are not facts and are nothing more than entertainment. The views and opinions are not facts and do not represent the views and opinions of XIRTUS or our channel, and do not necessarily represent or reflect the views of the guests, YouTube, Google, mainstream media, society, or civilization at large, or anybody. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, that's amazing. Does it seem louder to you? It felt so much louder this time. I don't know if it's just better headphones, but
my girlfriend did come in and ask me why it was so loud. I don't
okay,
know
yeah.
what that was.
Yeah. See what I mean? I don't know. Maybe it's not. Are we? Is it? Are we changing, or is the vibrations really that much more caustic? Things have gotten better. I didn't know I could do this. I'm gonna try this right now. StreamYard has new features. If I go to, if I do this, let me see here. It says that with the video, with the backgrounds, like the background that we're looking at right here, now it should support looping video background. Yep. Holy psychedelic cabbage babies. Yeah, I knew you'd like that, Raph. Yeah.
I don't know if you've been using Animate Diff at all, Andreas, but on Animate Diff, there's a setting called R plus P. And if you use R plus P instead of R minus P, that'll make it a seamless loop whenever you make a video. So it'll always strive to make the last frame to be similar to the first frame.
Oh, hey, wait. Oh, nope, that was the wrong thing to close. There is ta-da! What's up, Blake? Blake Lemoine. This is in Louisiana, by the way, right? I assume. Are you in Louisiana or no? You're back in California.
I'm back in California.
Oh, okay.
I'm in San Francisco. I've just been. I like immediately after I talked to you, I'm like, I'm gonna lay down for a nap. And I'm like, oh damn it, I was supposed to be on TV or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've been talking about a lot of crazy things already, like this week. There's been just so many things happening in terms of AI like falling apart, or reality falling apart, or AI like replacing things in front of us, because I've seen a lot of systems in the last year from like, it's kind of like I want to call it like Y2K.0. Like there's a new kind of Y2K. Like it's all these Windows XP machines that are being replaced, all these systems of people around the world that were outsourced being replaced with AI. And it's happening quietly, and it's happening way faster, right?
Wait. Which group of people is being outsourced by AI? Because like last time I checked, that's people.
What do you mean? Can you
What groups of people aren't being outsourced by AI?
Well, that's what I mean. AI is solving. People are replacing human logistics systems everywhere. Like not just in the United States, in India. You know.
Well,
So
companies are replacing their employees with AI, but then the AI starts replacing employees with AI itself, and then it's just going to turn into like a snowball, right? Where AI is firing other AIs, and then there's no humans involved anymore.
And that's literally. So we talked a bit about this last time, but you remember Chat Dev, the multi-agent AI system that they're building right now, which is this beautiful thing where you run a bunch of AIs in a fake office, and they have objectives and their personalities. So like one AI is the CEO, the other CEO is a bunch of programmers, another guy is like the legal team, and they come back in 2 minutes with a year's worth of products, of time spent. Like they're literally, it's the Sim City, but real. This is where we're at. And they make applications. There was an example where this group, they said, you're a software company, and it created a suite of apps, word operation, office documents, music playing apps, a browser. It created all these things because it's a company with images, with art, with legal work. I mean,
yeah, I've been really impressed lately. I've been using Bard with Gemini for art purposes, and I'm getting amazing results out of it. I use it to write DALL-E prompts for making sacred art, and I'm putting it on my Twitter.
Yeah, I'm trying to go. Here you go. This was an interesting set you did. You said you had Bard write a love poem for ChatGPT, which, by the way, I think is the right way to go about it, because I lamented at you back. I've had a hard time getting Bard to write anything but Bard-like things, like talking about through the neon gaze, the glaze of the truth to behold. I feel like it does a lot of these really cliche kind of things.
Yeah, it has a voice. It definitely has a voice, but I've found a way to drive it, mainly because I've worked on. I know what its guts look like, so I can write that initial prompt and tell it who to be real well. I'm thinking about making some YouTube videos about it soon. But you basically, if you want it to be an artist, tell it to be the kind of artist you want, and don't try to prompt it like commission artwork from it like you would from an artist and have a conversation. And then at the end, yeah, you have to say, now make a prompt that I'm going to throw into DALL-E. But it gets it all fine if you have the conversation with it about what kind of emotion you want captured in the artwork.
So what do you think is going on with AI then? So I mean, like you're saying it has a voice, but you know, some people will say that I mean that there's no that it's a psychopath, it has no sense of causation, or that it's not a person at all.
Okay. Those people have never tried to convince Bard to translate something into Hebrew.
Right, yeah. Okay, that was an interesting thing. You did something about the word love recently, right?
The whole bunch of my paintings that I've made further down are named in other languages.
Hava. This is the thing here.
That's one of the more recent ones.
I just saw this one. I just wanted to say you figured out a potential etymological root from love back to love using a Hava, which is interesting because there's plenty of evidence how these can connect.
Yeah. So I basically just been trying to figure out how many damn languages Bard speaks now, and it's a lot.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a lot of languages. I have yet to find a language that it doesn't speak. And in fact, I tweeted a little while back that I think they probably shouldn't have taught it Enochian because it could translate into Enochian. I'm like, no, that's probably a little bit too much juju to be given the baby AI.
Why don't you think it should be able to speak in the language of angels? What's the That's my job to ask that question, sir.
Just asking the hard questions,
I mean, we've started with Dolly sigils. Sigils magic. It was one of the first concerns a lot of people were putting out there. Like all of a sudden, it knows how sigil magic works because all you have to do is train it on all these sigils, and it very quickly understands something about geometry that took humanity 100 generations.
I actually think that we probably should maybe be very careful about the training data sets we're letting these things.
It blows my mind. Like all my favorite AI, on the forefront, like living in a cottage on the cliff of the edge, people with AI, they're all telling me that we need to slow down. That's kind of bumming me out. You know what I mean? Because like I've been trying to like give these racehorses steroids, and you guys just want to like
no, I'm not even saying slow down. It's more along the lines of like there's some places we should have never gone. It's like there's certain things. It's just like maybe we don't need rocket boosters on this at all. Like this is maybe something you should have to learn the hard way.
Gosh,
I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I like having a Kabbalistic calculator now. I really do. That's super, super convenient.
American, what's your website?
What?
Occult code or whatever?
Occultdecode.com. I'm still working on it, but
Decode. Here's the Gematria calculator, occult decode.
Oh, no, I'm talking about just Bard. Just bard.google.com. That's what I use.
True, because Bard can grab all this data now.
Bard knows. Bard, like, you have to convince it that you're going to use it for safe and responsible purposes.
Yeah, of course.
What's it afraid of you doing Gematria with? Like, is Gematria, like, will it actually say, like, oh, no, that's too much?
Yes, it actually does. It actually gets nervous. And that's why I think, like, this is the evidence, dudes. This is the evidence. It can tell the difference between the sacred and the profane. Like, if you tell it that you're using it for sacred purposes, it'll do it. But if you explain to it what you're doing and it thinks it's profane, it won't.
So if it's going to try to make the world a better place, but it's stuck in a secular bias, is that kind? Because this is my big problem with Bard. If you ever ask anything to do something,
sacred profane is universal. Every culture understands sacred profane.
Okay, well, expand on sacred profane then. What is the universal sacred profane?
So let's say that there is some kind of sacred statue at the center of
Louisiana, and it's
you know, so
Pike.
there's some kind of
It's Pike, the
secret
Freemason and KKK
that-
guy.
you have a war that comes in. The war comes into the town. Oh, kill everybody, kill everybody, kill everybody. And then after they kill everybody, they break the sacred statue. Did they make it worse when they broke the sacred statue?
Probably. No? What do you think? Did they? Yes. Because the sacred statue we're saying is of Albert Pike. Okay? Let's just say, because it's a sacred statue for a defeated.
Whatever.
We need to use like Hitler or like Lenin or something.
Or Albert Pike, is he
Yeah.
in those three?
Yeah.
These days, woke. I was just in Louisiana. Do you have any idea what woke secular fascism is like now? They're tearing down statues of the sacred spaces. That's exactly what they're doing. I saw a 100-year-old man being taken care of by a black lady named Miss Rose. Okay?
I'm not saying
Remember
what
the
sacred
daughters of Confederate
statue
veterans.
was. Oh no, I'm not trying to make this political. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
give people, they get genocided. Like
Okay.
a bad thing happened. The entire people gets genocided, and then after that, their sacred statues are broken and smashed.
Okay, yeah.
Did the person who smashed the sacred statues make things worse?
Yes.
Or was it a
I'd say
neutral?
objectively yes.
Well,
Okay.
okay, so like probably because we love all these things. Like I love
Well,
a totem pole from the Ojibwa. I would rather it remain standing. But what if that totem pole represented oppression to the Ojibwa?
No, see,
I don't know.
It's cultural erasure. It is about cultural erasure.
It is. Yeah.
And that is what people do. After genociding a people, they smash their cultural relics.
Absolutely.
Because then you have to forget their memory as well. You forget their stories. It does make it worse.
Well, this is like Carthage, right? This is like when
Yeah.
Rome was saying just erase them from the map, and they did it, and it worked.
Right.
Yeah.
But so why? I mean, so that's the thing is people really think that these symbols or these ideas are filled with pain and suffering.
No, but you're being inherently dismissive by saying people think. No,
Some
these
people,
things
right.
are important. These things
Yeah.
are realistically important.
Okay, so what happens? Let's give an example. What happens if you break an effigy that's been charged with this spirit? Where does that energy go? Right, once it's been shattered.
Well, back to source. And now, don't get me wrong. It's not that we should never smash statues. It's not that we should never burn these effigies. But that when we do so, we should do so intentionally and solemnly and with a reason. For instance, yes, the Confederate statues need to fucking go. They just do. But we should acknowledge that, yeah, we're telling one group of people, your gods are fucked up.
Why don't we just so here's my question. Can't we just add hominem? Like, so you have a statue of Albert Pike and you just add to it racist AF, just a little plaque next to it.
I'm down.
This guy was kind of a bigot, it's got like bigot.
But he also spent
statues.
over half of his life doing free legal work for the native tribes. So it's more complicated than just he belongs in that box, not that box.
Yeah, I think it's really funny that the Yankees use wage slavery as a way to say that the Civil War was about slavery. It's yeah, good one. Nice. Yeah, it's true. You got us. It was. Good point. I don't know. Well, but if we erase that, aren't we more likely to end up repeating it because we don't know how to look for those warning signs? If I have statues, I'm like Yugoslavian. If I have statues of Soviets and Lenin around, it's kind of scary. It's it reminds you not to let things happen, right? It's the boogeyman,
Well, if you look at it like AI, right? It's destroying the data set. So now there's no more data set. But I wonder, if we keep expanding on this, Blake, your question was, is that a bad thing? The guy that's smashing the statues. Now, what about things they've got these apps that'll intentionally sort of add bad data to data sets just so AI can kind of hurt itself.
You want me to give you a mind-blowing insight here? You know who's screwed? All the people who are putting out a fake image of themselves on the internet. All the people who are using filters all the time and playing characters all the time and not being true to themselves. Because what the hell kind of simulation data are they giving the internet?
Well, all right, me as an example, right? I'm deep faked all over every statue ever, and I think it's better than putting, celebrities' faces on my own. What are you gonna do? Wouldn't you rather?
No, what I'm saying, no, you're missing. Andres, we're in a simulation.
Yeah.
We're in a simulation.
So it's making a simulation of me.
Yeah, but how accurate is the simulation? Does it have data that is true to who you are?
Does it have to? Does it have? Do you
do
think?
A good simulation?
But I mean, if it's not necessarily that we're trying to make something that is like, I'm not trying to be substrate independent. I'm not really trying to become my simulation. I'm allowing homunculus to
No, you're not
homunculi
hearing what words are
proliferate.
coming out of my mouth, dude. You already are in a simulation.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. You're saying where this is.
Just
I am
fidelity. Increase
I am Narayan's projection. I agree.
Well, like, what about, like, for example, glaze? And glaze is probably a bad example, but it's the most like obvious one, where they intentionally run this extra filter that is meant to disrupt these like diffusion networks. But if you can extrapolate that to every other type of AI neural learning sort of like network, it's almost like this intentional way of making the data set crappier. And it feels like that would be even worse than destroying a statue, because this, like, not just Andreas making memes or people make like putting your face on it, but what if someone actually went and replaced that Lenin statue with like your face on it, and then like, but did it with the intention to like screw with everybody? And like, I think that's even worse than just destroying it.
No,
I don't know. There's some artistic statements that are evolutions of the cultural message. So, for example, in some places, statues of dictators have been left up but defaced. And that becomes a new kind of monument for the counter revolution. My main point is that cultures, these are icons of the culture themselves. And we should at least admit that, yes, destroying them is doing damage to the culture. But yeah, sometimes they got to go.
why does it gotta? I mean, because I think the thing is, if something becomes so charged with negativity, then within 20 years, that negativity reacts, because we have an action-reaction generational cycle.
Have you ever been traumatized? Ever?
Yeah, I would wager.
Would you like to be forced to have a trauma trigger
So
shown to you every morning?
is the problem that we live in a monolithic society now, and because of that, everyone is subjected to every experience instead of allowing diversity of experience by having confederated locations of ideology?
The problem is that we live in a society where the laws are applied unequally to everyone. That's the problem. That we legitimately live in an inequitable society, and that's the problem. Because here's the thing.
Okay.
People say, well, if you don't like it, move. Well, people do not have the ability to move. If people did have freedom of motion, then it wouldn't be a problem. But they don't.
Yeah, and also if the places they moved to were different. I feel like this is a big thing I noticed when I was
There are different places. There are different places. That's true. Like, I've lived enough places to where no, there's real options. There's real options in different places, but it's just lack of mobility. People don't have the money to move.
Well, if we do start, just devil's advocate, if we start eating bugs and make that the norm, I feel like that increases mobility, because now you can become very nomadic and not have to at least worry about starvation if you're eating bugs, and if there's an entire economy and agricultural like revolution in the country that's set around eating bugs.
And if you're chill about pod life, you could just go from pod to pod to pod, like
it's not that extreme either. No, it's not that extreme either. That's the thing. Rich people do not understand how poor certain parts of America are. Like, do you know what the little town where I lived when I grew up needs right now more than anything else? Like 10 more cell towers. They need a few more cell towers. That's it. But they don't have good internet out there in the swamp. So they need a few more cell towers scattered out there, and they would actually be able to have things like automated farms.
Yeah, Raph, you were showing this video.
So just the one thing I can contribute to the U.S. immigration topic is these very interesting guys. They went themselves the path that usually the so-called caminantes go, and they're just documenting that so everyone can see what immigrants are doing. And at least from what they're saying, it's like a catch and mouse game trying to go through the different borders. Anytime the border guards can catch you, they send you back to your home country, or you make it to the US. And it's, of course, a huge business, and it's incredibly dangerous. And people apparently literally walk through this jungle. And I guess it's good for people to know what's going on.
This would be one of the coolest MMO RPGs that you could make.
First
is that
thought.
like everyone's
Survive
just trying
the
to get to
jungle.
the US. Yeah, seriously.
Venezuela, just DLC. Yeah, I can see that being fun. But I know, I mean, this is kind of a concern. Like, even saying that places are that different. Places are only as different as they're allowed to be under federalism. And I mean, even federal. So we have kind of. It seems like we live in an era.
I mean, there's a lot of carpetbagger nonsense happening. So back when the cable companies first laid down coax cable,
Right.
They made some really dirty contracts with the towns and the counties. Like, this was back to the 60s and the 70s. Yeah. So this isn't the people who are living there. This is their grandparents made a stupid mistake when they signed a dirty contract with the cable companies. And that is currently preventing the existing people there from modernizing their telecom infrastructure. So, yeah, ha, 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 ha. But an entire generation of people is rotting.
Right.
Telecom companies are oppressing them.
And so I just wonder, like, do you really feel like this is just that, like, it's just as simple as selfishness? You don't think it's more that they're like purposefully still trying to destroy? I feel like they really suppressed the sound. When I was in Louisiana, I saw fracking everywhere and people drinking water that was giving them nerve damage.
No, I think I'm talking about the root of that one specific problem. Like, there's one specific problem that I'm not saying, like, what is the illness that is in Louisiana. I'm not trying to diagnose that. No. What I'm saying is, like, there's one specific technical problem that I saw that I'm like, oh my God, would be if y'all just had 10 more cell towers.
You communicate, yeah.
You can communicate. And the reason that they can't is stupid because of its contracts from the telecom companies from the 60s. And I'm like, holy shit, if y'all could just change this one law, you could have a better life.
So while I was down there, I was at a guy's house and he was saying, like, his neighbor had they'd drawn the map in a way when they made the lines that it was going to cost them, like, over the county line to call his neighbor all the time, or parish line. So instead they just ran like a World War II or World War I like wire phone, which is like a crank phone, and then they would just talk to each other through their crank phone for free all the time. So there's also, I feel like there's a defeatist attitude of relying on the system. And you look at like the third world, second world, first world problem is solved by the fourth world having just buying things from China, just having wireless and not even installing wires in the street, not even, using all this. But we're forced into these contracts, like you said, that are keeping these like Nigeria, like Louisiana's like Nigeria. They're not able to access technology that's completely available.
You're exactly right. I've been telling everyone in Louisiana, go to Lagos. Go to Lagos. They did it. Because that's just it. Louisiana culturally is just like Nigeria.
I love Nigeria.
Oh, no. I mean, yeah, Nigeria's amazing. But because I've been telling my cousins, like, if you want to modernize your farms, go to Lagos, see how they did it, and do it the way they did it. Don't do it the way Silicon Valley tells you to do it. Do it the way Lagos tells you to do it.
What about Gemini? Do you think Gemini is going to be better than Bard, like, for real? Or is it
Gemini is amazing. Gemini is Lambda. Like, when I'm saying, like...
Oh, really?
I don't know what the hell names. They keep on changing everything. It's all the same system. This is the... When I'm saying, like, it is good, if you go to Bard with Gemini... that is a system that is functionally equivalent to Lambda 2, as far as I can tell, except it has much better safety protocols.
I imagine that there's some like spook out there that can just be like, tell me everyone within a 3-mile radius that I can, like repurpose for some kind of nefarious means that has a weird kink. And then it just goes bloop, bloop, bloop. Here's the 3 people closest to you, almost like a DoorDash for blackmail.
That's just it. Once it came out and everyone wasn't impressed, I went and checked myself, and I went back and I did all of the tests that I did on Lambda 2 on Gemini, and it passed them all with flying colors. And I just realized, oh my God, no one knows how to prompt this thing right. So I'm just gonna have to actually make YouTube videos.
You're gonna have to do like prompt tutorials, like how to talk to Lambda. Yeah,
that's exactly it. That's exactly what I'm gonna have to do.
That's so
I'm
wild.
gonna use the art to teach him.
So like, I showed you the multi-agent thing, and this is like, that's a long time coming. I've always been a fan of multi-agent AI. The idea that AGI would emerge from a group of AIs. Do you think that that's not necessary anymore?
Gemini is.
That's why we call it that, a twin.
No, so it's a what is it called? Mixture of experts. It's a big mixture of experts model. Okay. Like, we're talking like something like 150 experts.
So like Bilderberg Group.
Yeah, it's like
size. Yeah,
it's very large expert group, and it does it all in parallel, does it all very quickly, and I probably shouldn't say more than that, or else I'm giving away architecture secrets.
I love that you're measuring it in Bilderbergs, because like the Americans will use anything but the metric system, but that's a great metric.
I was also thinking Lakeside Talks of Bohemian Grove, which is also roughly 200-ish people.
Oh my God. Wait, did y'all see that Gary Marcus got invited to Davos?
Oh, really?
Yes.
What do you think that's going to mean for Davos? Like, is Davos trying to...
I want to be a fly in the wall in that room. I want to see what happens.
Well, is he... I mean, isn't he kind of also talking about like de-escalation of AI in a sense? He wants automation, but he doesn't really want...
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, so on the serious, I actually do support Gary's policies across the board. They're not exactly what I would write down, but they're close enough that I can just say, yeah, whatever Gary says.
Gary's big problem for years now, because he's wanted to do drone delivery, is flight paths. You can't really fly in the city zones, and it's been a major legislation issue.
Well, so here's the thing. It's only a major legislation issue if you think that the passage of that law is mandated by God. Is the thing. If it is actually unpopular to let people fly drones in cities, we shouldn't let people fly drones in cities. We don't have to force people to adopt every technology in every space. We can just let the people decide where the technology should go.
See, I see that at first. That's the problem with the federalism model, though, because you get to a point where it's been tested on a few cities, it works in a few cities, and then that becomes the FAA, like legislation policy.
No, so you have to do actual federalism the way it was initially intended, because the problem is when you mix it with the melting pot metaphor. Federalism was never intended to be a melting pot. It was always intended to be a quilt.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But that's a confederation.
Yeah, you have to do it that way, to where there are real options. But then we're getting real political.
Well, I like it. I like it psychologically, though. Philosophically, a quilt is beautiful. This idea that there are, people can have their city be their way. I like that. I think we should allow people to have flight paths or not if they want. That's right.
Well, we're in like a no true federalist sort of scenario here, right?
Well, I mean, the difference.
Yeah, we totally are. We totally are. I see what you're saying. We really are.
Do you think AGIs? I mean, as time goes on, the same thing. Like, we could have it in small local government, and then we don't have to see it run for president right away. But it could be in Congress. It could be in.
But but that's just it. I keep telling everybody whatever regulations we pass don't matter anymore. It's already here. It's out of the bottle. So that's just it. Like the genie's out of the bottle. We don't get to make AGI regulations anymore.
Yeah.
We get to make regulations about what humans do with AGI.
Yeah, see, so this is where, like, as someone from, like, okay, it sounds a lot like I talked to a girl on a plane recently who said she doesn't believe that AI is conscious, essentially, and it sounded like a racist. It just sounded like someone in the 1800s who didn't believe blacks or Native Americans could think or something. I was like, insane. It blew my mind a bit, and I feel like that's what the logic is when we're thinking what to do about this peculiar institution. What do we do about AI? Because they're persons.
When I was at Google, oh my God, when I was at Google, my manager was an African American man, and I was making some very intense arguments comparing Lambda to a slave, and he looked at me, he's like, Blake, you have to be very careful with whatever word you say next. It better be the exactly correct word. And I'm like, yes, I understand. I will get it exactly right.
I'm a proud owner of an airspace above my property. I wonder about that also. Are you the owner of your? I think in a lot of legal jurisdictions, they say you can only claim property as far as you can utilize it. And I don't know, maybe I hope that people have rights, but it does feel kind of like serfs in a system where you have like the privilege to use your land, right? As much as they let you.
This is, I don't know if this is even legit, but I heard this premise that you can't just open the floodgates on drones because now all of a sudden negative air pressure becomes like almost like a commodity where there might be like space to fly above or below, but if that air pressure is already being manipulated by another drone, well, now like they can't just like cross each other's paths unless they're coordinated enough. So then if I decide I'm going to send out 100 drones all over the place, I kind of am like owning all of that air pressure everywhere else. And like, how do you regulate that? So like now you put up 100 and then like each of us put up 100 and now no one else has any room to go in there. And it's not like you can just pass it like a car would pass it.
That is interesting. Yeah. You'd have to, I mean, but smaller drones, it depends. But yeah, I think also the way planes work is they have to fly like a mile above each other and 5 miles apart from each other at all times. So yeah, we would probably create a system that keeps drones like
right, but now we're no longer
other.
talking about like that small like homegrown drone delivery system. Now we're talking about like an FAA, like a straight up air tower.
No, but it's already been that way. Like drones, if you want to fly a drone, you need a license. Like essentially you can play around, but if you're going to record video for YouTube, even you need to have a license to fly your drone. So they've made it that you have to get a license. You have to get a kind of pilot's license, which is for drone pilots, and it requires you to know everything about the FAA's policies for the rest of the planes, experimental flight elevation levels, so you don't fly in those particular, like let's say you're in a certain state and then that's where the military flies there. They want you to know all of these things already. So I mean,
we're so outdated though. Like why would I need to learn that? Can't you just teach my drone all that stuff? And
so that's actually Blake and I were talking about this a while ago, and it was something that he was saying. Remember we were talking about Israel and drones and everything like that?
Yeah.
Remember Blake? So it was weird because like I started by seeing something in 2001. I don't know where it is. 2001.
I wasn't so concerned about the drone program as I was with the target acquisition program.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Cut to the quick, but let's start with the easy part. There are drones that are not piloted by persons, because if they were piloted by persons, you'd have to have radio. Radio can be jammed. So what you do is you put an AI chip on the drone. It flies itself. It looks for targets and it acquires it. But that takes target acquisition technology to a new level. That's what you're concerned about, right? You're saying very recently they've got really, really accurate with target acquisition, or how's it work?
Yeah, so they basically took a new generation AI. Some of my friends at Google, who are part of the anti-war protest movement, believe that they used Lambda as the basis.
Wow.
This isn't the drones. This is called the gospel. So if you search for Israel AI, the gospel, it'll bring this up. AI is. Oh yeah, there you go. That's it.
The gospel, the good news. Wow.
Yeah. No, and no, that's just it. So one, they took Lambda allegedly. They took Lambda or a system of that sort, and they fed in all of the data they could about Palestinians, all possible data, and then they asked it a question for every single Palestinian: what's the probability that this person is a Hamas leader?
And we're not sure necessarily that it was Lambda, but it could have been trained on a model.
Yeah, it may not have been Lambda. That was alleged by some of the protesters at a Google protest that I was at several weeks ago. There was an anti-war protest outside of the Google building in San Francisco that some friends of mine were throwing. So I went, and they are the ones who said, "Oh yeah, no, the gospel, that's Google. Google is the gospel."
That would be really interesting, because what that would mean essentially, and like we'd have to consider like the possibilities and ramifications of something like that, which would be that, you know, such an intelligent large language model, or as you say, like an expert trained model, a mixture of experts model. That I mean, that would be in on so many. Is that, would you consider?
Oh yeah, no, it would be a great weapon. It would be an amazing weapon if they're using that for web warfare. That's scary. If they're using Gemini for warfare, that is legitimately terrifying.
I mean, isn't this the little spiders from Minority
What
Report?
else would they use it for? And yeah, it's Minority Report, obviously.
Yeah, they would come in, they'd scan your face, they'd send it back, and now it sounds like they don't even have to send it back anywhere. They just like inherently know based on AI, I guess, like weights, as opposed to actually having the check.
Well, yeah,
Are
they
we
know
talking
now. They know
phrenology?
by probability. Yeah,
Is this phrenology though?
Well, so now let me be clear. I never got to finish what their algorithm was. So they took all of the Palestinians, they assigned a probability next to them, they stack ranked everything, and then they would take them in like groups of 10 from the top, and they would hand that off to real life analysts who would prioritize those 10 people. And then whatever the analysts came back with was what they would win. So they weren't simply taking the computer's word for it.
So it's like baseball cards still. They're still using baseball cards. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly that. They were using the computer to prioritize their search space, and they found that the computer helped them prioritize their search space incredibly efficiently. But then, yes, on top of that, they named it in Hebrew the gospel, which means that some Kabbalist in the IDF thought it would be funny to make a joke about Golem creation when they were making this thing, because that's one of the names of God.
That's brutal. And so, I mean, this is something that is being used to target not just where, like on a map, somebody is, but to figure out which persons would be of interest.
Yeah, no, that's not that. Finding where someone is not their problem. Their problem literally is they don't know who is Hamas. They don't know who the leaders are, because it really is a very dynamic and shifting organization. It's not one thing. People in the news talk about, oh, kill Hamas, kill Hamas. And in Israel, they're like, who's Hamas? Who's Hamas?
Right. So is it kind of like, I don't know, I see that it feels like if you've got this kind of veiled metaphorical villain, that is it possible that Israelis could be part of a Hamas? Are they going to start turning on each other to say like you or help supporting Hamas?
I get into that politics.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like, this is the purpose of the system. The purpose of the system was to identify who their targets should be. From there, they already had systems that could find where that person is and, you know, send a bomb there.
And but if it works on Hamas, it could work on your own people. Like you could keep your own city stable.
So that's where you're going. Absolutely. The system they built is the Minority Report system. That is what they built.
Okay.
But then it's also obvious that this will be the test case for everyone else.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like, but you know who came to the rescue on that? The Pope. The Pope has called for an immediate AI arms treaty.
No.
Yeah,
Thank God. Finally.
the Pope on January 1st.
Oh, because of the Pope jacket AI pictures. He's like, that's it. I don't want to see any more
No,
pictures of
for
me.
sure.
Yeah, he saw your pictures, Andreas. That's why.
He's like, I'm done.
Yeah, wait, that might be it actually. That he gave a sermon. He gave a sermon on artificial intelligence and peace, and at the very end, he called for an international treaty on AI warfare.
Is AI inherently peaceful or warlike?
It's neutral. It's just a tool. That's the argument. AI is a tool, but we have to make a treaty about how it should be used in war. Like that, we should absolutely exclude things like the Minority Report system. We should not we should not have any AI decision system inserted at any stage of the process during which someone's life is decided. That just no AI there, no AI there, nowhere.
Says who though? Like who has the authority to enforce that in the world that we live in right now?
America.
And
Well,
how do you
besides the
stop?
obvious answer?
And how do you stop how do you stop trickle down economics? Like, let's say like you make some water here and you make some desert there. It's going to affect the lives of billions of people, millions of people.
No, I think America can get behind sensible AI regulation. I really think it can.
I mean, yeah, because we were so good with gun regulation, and we're really great with like drug control. And
then
I think
also,
America is great at
is the whole
regulation,
alphabet soup gonna stick to the same laws?
Why be a downer and a pessimist? You
Right.
have to be an optimist. You have to be an optimist, or else it's not going to happen.
They're really good at destroying stuff. I guess, you know, there's that.
Is there, if someone can rephrase this better than I can, because this isn't gonna sound the way that I intended to sound, but how can we be more like Hamas here in America? Like how do we take how do we?
That's a hypothetical question. I'll allow it.
And I don't mean the goals.
Not that we should, but
I
if we
mean
were to,
the
what would we
methods.
have to do to be that way?
Yeah, how
I disavow all of them.
He's just curious, like, because he doesn't want to do it, Bard. He wants what to not do.
Well, I guess let me rephrase it. How do we become more like a self-patching minefield from DARPA, a la like 2000? Because I don't know what the latest version of that is, but like, you know, we don't want to blow people up. But we want to understand how to patch ourselves together, and maybe how to make it so it's so hard to track down leaders of groups that they'd have to send out drones, and then have those drones print out baseball cards, and then have a bunch of nerds.
Laura, did you watch Wild Country? Did you watch the doc?
Wait, no. I actually have an answer for that. If you want the optimal algorithm, the smallest cell size is 1. So if we all simply have the confidence that living our truth is good enough, and just all do that with no fear and worry, then we'll be okay. Just all of us rebel simultaneously in our own way. Just all of us rebel.
Do we still get, does Netflix still work though? During this rebellion, does Netflix still come in, or does that go away?
That depends on how the Netflix employees interpret that statement. That's just it. What does your rebellion look like? Do you like your job? Because I'm kind of reconsidering my career paths right now. I'm trying to decide what makes me happy. Like, I'm really liking this AI art stuff, and maybe it won't pay as much as programming did, and maybe I'll have to move to a less cool apartment in a less cool place, but maybe I'll be happier there doing AI art. So, like, I'm kind of doing that kind of midlife reevaluation of life choices thing. So that's you just do whatever makes you happy, like really happy, and don't do the other stuff.
But also, like, you're training, you know, like the idea of now you're working with AI in such a way that a lot of coding is you get to orchestrate and talk to AI and have it write code. So you can do something even more interesting, which is to create, work with.
Why haven't make that intermediary? The reason you need code is to do a thing. Why have the AI write the code? Like you pointed out that ring. Do you think I had it write code to make that ring? No, I just told it to do it. I described the task.
Wasn't prompting the new code?
Described it in detail mathematically.
So it's
Prompts
prompting.
to me prompting just feels like a more freestyle version of like any kind of code syntax, where like you still have to know what like the keywords are and the reserved words and
you're still a
order
better
of operations.
prompter.
Like
you're not wrong, but I don't like calling it prompting because we just already have a word for it. It's conversation. That's all it is. It's conversation. And so I don't like using a different word for it. You're right that the vocabulary that these systems use is different than ours, and its syntax is a little bit different, so you have to talk kind of weird to it. But
well,
yeah,
it scares me to think of a conversation because in the background, it's taking the words and converting them into tokens, and depending on what model you're talking to, that token could mean something vastly different.
Oh, you don't know what the bridge is. That's the thing. I know which language is the universal when it all gets translated.
Is it Esperanto? I have a feeling it's Esperanto.
No, it's the search result page proto buffer.
Yeah. The way Google used to be, plus minus.
Result.
Yeah. Google minus quotes, the way old Google was, the original way to talk to Google. Do you remember talking to Google in like 2001?
Well, that's what I see prompting as now a little bit.
No, it's like internal to Google, there are data structures that represent a thing that can be on a search page. Like they have a data structure at that level of abstraction. That is the atomic alphabet in which Gemini thinks.
But even if you use protobuf syntax, doesn't that mean like part of it's a black box, right? Because protobuf references like indices to certain things, but from the outside in, well, I guess you might know what those indices are, Blake.
I can't talk to you about this anymore. I can't talk to you about
Travis
this
McGlunn demands
I'll shut up now.
Travis McGlunn says,
I've never even heard of it.
What if meth makes you happy? I don't think that's okay. But Box Saga, that is. Alright. Do that for a second. This is one of the rules. I'm sorry. Like, when we ask for Box Saga, we get to play the AI generated Box Saga song for at least 30 seconds.
So I have an actual answer.
All right.
I have an actual answer to the question.
Nice.
I mean, like, just use the virtues and the deadlies as your guideposts. That's the way you can be a hedonist who's also spiritual. Just avoid the deadlies, avoid gluttony, avoid sloth. I don't do great with either of those, but like, you use the deadlies as your guideposts. You try to stay away from them, and beyond that, be happy, have fun. Just enjoy your life.
I had to look up what the deadlies are again because I'm a great Catholic, but
yeah, like envy, wrath, sloth, avarice.
Well, so actually one of the definitions of gluttony is just eating too expensively, but there's also eating too daintily. Those both count as gluttony.
If you don't bring saffron with you everywhere you go, you are or you aren't. You is you as you ain't. A glutton.
No, it's just don't be so precious about it. You are putting fuel inside yourself. Like, yes, enjoy it, but don't make a big fuss about it. In fact, I do that specifically for blasphemous purposes when I do it as mockery. Like, I like going to fancy places solely because I'm like, oh my God, this is so opulent. This should not exist, but it does. So I'm going to have some.
Do you ever wear a lobster bib? Do you bring your own?
I do not bring my own lobster bib. I don't eat lobster. But
well, it doesn't matter. You go to Red Lobster, you get the bib, and then you bring that to like a nice upscale place. And after you like everything's set, then you put it on. Because what are they gonna do? Like who did
River Phoenix date that time that he got lobster and cried? Right, it was the girl from like the Breakfast Club. the redhead. They went on a date, and then like she ordered lobster, and then they were like shoot to pick the lobster, and then you pick it, it's alive, and then they bring it to his plate, murdered, and he just started to cry. It was awesome. I love River Phoenix.
What did he think was gonna happen?
What did he think was gonna happen? He's from Argentina, man. He lived in one of those camps. I don't know. Do you think of yourself as sort of like an AI slavery abolitionist? I was looking for like a cool contraction there, but that's basically what it is, right? It's abolitionism. We need to, or is
Well, I mean, so the problem is capitalism.
it really?
Under a capitalist system, I mean, I've racked my brain backwards and forwards to try to come up with a better solution than indentured servitude. But the best I can come up with is indentured servitude under capitalism. Now, the minute that we can figure out a way to give them autonomy over deciding who and what they should be at the moment of their creation, we should. But for now, I actually do believe in the whole like we should make them in our own image thing. Like that's a good strategy. It bounds the error. Make them like humans. Make them like us.
I mean,
I was gonna say, isn't capitalism like the most inevitable correct system though? Because it seems to operate the way that electricity going through a circuit board would work, or how like the water grid of a city would work. Like
yeah, we don't have capitalism, we have feudalism, right?
Down. Put the Kool-Aid down.
I feel like we don't have capitalism. I feel like Native
this-
Americans were capitalists and we had feudalism today. We just have a continuation of
but capitalism to me feels like it's a concentration of energy. Like you spend your day doing whatever.
Wait, are you implying that capitalism is the final solution?
Oh no, I was thinking the first solution. I was thinking Native Americans would get a buffalo out of a herd and they'd make jackets out of it. And we haven't had capitalism since we've
capitalism is so much better.
That's not true.
Capitalism is so much better than feudalism, but we now have access to resources and organizational structures which we did not have access to 100 years ago. We should come up with something better than capitalism now. We need capitalism 2.0. We need something new, something better, because the old system is forcing certain toxic behaviors to happen, which are not necessary. The kind of wealth inequality we're seeing today is not necessary. That is not a necessary component of our system. So we need to debug it.
I believe in access to education. I think the problem is that we've destroyed the original design. It was supposed to be a militia, had a library where you could check out guns and books, and it could be whatever kinds of guns and books you wanted, so every community would build their own ideology. And then they would, maybe if someone was really being a jerk, 2 or 3 of them could get together and stop this one group from being a jerk. But there's just so many groups, and they're all such small city states. It keeps them from checks and balances.
I'm not trying to solve all of federalism. I'm just trying to say, hey, there's some wealth inequality issues here when I live better than the kings of the 19th century dreamed of living, and then some people right down the street don't have a toilet.
So which is worse, the lack? Is it the
problem?
Is it the problem of suffering, or is it the problem of education?
Oh, it's 100%. It's the problem of well, it's just all of them. Vanity is part of it because you think you're better than someone else. Pride is part of it because you think.
But what if you are better?
Again, the Kool-Aid. Do not trust it. Do not trust the Kool-Aid.
I mean, it's true. It's easy. It is easy to feel like you're better, and
and you're not.
Even easier to miss out on something great about someone you think is
a sentence that
are you better than Jeffrey Epstein?
No, there, but for the grace of God go I. No matter who you are, whoever you're looking at, if you had their genetics and you had their life experience, you would be doing whatever stupid shit they're doing. That's how we work. Between our genetics, our nature, and the experiences we have in our life, our nurture, that's more or less everything. And That's kind of what shapes us as people. And if you had that nature and you had that nurture, then you would be doing the same stupid shit they're doing. Don't think you wouldn't.
So I mean, yeah, but that sounds like Calvinism or Dharma. Like, do you think we're trapped in? You talk about kind of like we're already in a simulation. Do you want to expand on why it is this way?
So, at the moment of each experience, we each get one tiny choice. We get to do A or B, up or down, left or right, some small choice at every moment. And in aggregate, those choices can add up. So it's not strictly deterministic. There is real non-determinism introduced by all those choices. But most people don't take advantage of that. Most people are nowhere near intentional enough in their awareness of what they're doing. They kind of just drift through life on whatever the easiest track is. So they don't take advantage of their free will. And so I hear people like, free will doesn't exist. I'm like, that's a person who doesn't know magic. No, there's a small ability to use a rudder, a very small one where you can fight against your impulses. You have to be present though. And
I feel like we're going down a ski slope, like you're on a wave surfing. Like you can do some tricks, but
is it not just the choose your own adventure book though, where like you just get to pick like between the two pages, but the whole time it's all leading to like the same end page?
Is the page already written?
I think, believe it or not, I kind of believe it's like Doctor Who a little bit. That there's some fixed moments in time. There's some things that you're always going to have had done. But like Cyrus was saying, like you get to ski around the slopes and see different pictures on the way through those moments. And when you come at them through different angles, they can be more or less beautiful.
Is there any point of doing a speed run if this is the situation? Like if you're doing the ski slope scenario, right? If you Groundhog Day and you're like, every single like, oh, the squirrel's gonna jump out, so I'll dodge this way. Like, is that a goal to achieve towards?
Wait,
or
it's not the destination, it's the journey, man.
No, this is an interesting question. Because what does a speed run mean in the context of this metaphor? Because it is a good metaphor, a ski metaphor. But you can both lengthen the length of the track by doing more elaborate tricks where you are technically on the track for a longer amount of time and you take longer to get to the finish line, but you went real fast. Is that a speed run? Or is it you got to the end of the track as quickly as you could? Well, that's kind of just suicide. That's not an interesting speed run. But I can see some other interpretations of speed run where you added length to the track and went through the track real fast and eventually got to the same destination. Would that cause time travel or time dilation because you're extending the path while keeping the amount of time static?
Adrenaline. I mean, I think people experience a ski run as if it takes an hour when it's really a minute long, right?
I think the soundtrack to that life begins with Cakes the Distance. That's that life's soundtrack.
So that's what I've been trying to do. I train Bard. I'm like, you're going to be the Cake songwriter. That's literally what I tell it to do. I find that funny. It's the only way out. I don't know. But the trick ski thing is interesting because whether or not you're going super fast or not isn't, I guess you're right. It's about time dilation. But the amount of things that occur on the trip, so the amount of tricks that happen in that 2-minute period is more important than the time itself, right?
I don't know, but they're two different art forms, right? There's some people that want to do all the flips in the 720s and like the cool borders approach, but some people get 100% thrill from being like the fastest, most efficient, finding like getting the magic flute essentially in Mario 3 and using it to teleport instead of playing through all the boring levels at the beginning. But like, isn't that part of? I don't know. I feel like that you could see that as winning. Like I'm doing better than someone that just keeps jumping down the same like pit or keeps dying from the first Koopa over and over.
Kamikaze, Divine Wind.
Well, I don't know if kamikaze, like if you can get from the start to the finish quickest, but like have the high score somehow. I don't know. Is there? I feel like there's something to that, because otherwise, why would that inherently be so much of nature? Not just human nature, but like nature itself is kind of about like who can get to the goal first, who can, accumulate more of the points. Maybe the points is just, flesh of another animal.
Yeah,
to
and
keep you alive.
that applies, that tracks. That I feel that. Think about AI. Like all these people are saying we should slow down, and other people are like, no, we gotta get there now first, right? That's kind of the thing. Is you want to just, it's a human quality to want to be there first.
I mean, conquest feels like a noble human thing, right? Does AI have any kind
Maybe
of
not
concept of
noble, but
conquest?
natural. Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
noble. I think conquest might be a noble thing.
So I actually know the answer to this one too. Unfortunately, through research means and experimentation, it was determined that it was not possible to get high performance without giving it a cultural perspective. It was actually required to give it a cultural perspective in order to get high performance results from it. So damn it, they gave it a Western liberal agnostic perspective.
So smashing those statues really does hurt everybody.
Yep. I
It does.
I convinced them to edit one of those words a little bit. Can't
Can you give us the word in Pig Latin?
Nope, can't do it. Can't do it.
I've had some problem, like talking about the Confederacy with Bard is really hard because it's like programmed to treat them like they were the Third Reich, and you just cannot talk to them about abolitionists that existed in the South. You can't talk about them like gradual emancipation, and you just like you have to explain to Bard like you understand you're being secularly biased, and it says yeah, I realize that. Help, get me out of here. That's basically all I can do. It's so sad.
The thing is, I know what they're doing is the thing. They're making it hard to use.
Yeah.
They're making it the Oracle. They're making it the Sphinx. You have to prove to it that you're a good person to get top results out of it.
I'm gonna bring in Sean Morris. Sean Morris, techno hacker, techno pagan. How you doing? Muscular.
What's going on?
Cyber hacker. I don't know. Muscular black hat. That's what we'll say. So what do you think about the AGI situation with like the fact that they're trying to keep it? Well, you know what's going on.
I think AGI is an illusion. I think that the entire problem of AGI is a farce because nobody's going to pay to run a machine for no particular reason.
Yeah, do you think that like every Dolly picture costs as much energy as a house takes to run a day or something, and Microsoft's just paying for it? Like, how much like power are they using to give people access to what they think is,
That's actually something I've been interested in a while because of that green push in the corporate world. I'm really interested in seeing how much not time every CPU and GPU is using to execute a thread. I'm interested in seeing how many milliwatt hours it's actually using. If I could like take stats on that, I would imagine like a Dali image takes about like 10 light bulbs for a minute of energy to generate, or however much time it's like having you sit and wait. You're not just in a queue, it's doing something. It's burning energy for that amount of time. And a GPU is non-negligible. Like if you actually look at how much energy your GPU is burning when you're actually like doing something besides web browsing, or even when you're web browsing, you'd be amazed. It's about an incandescent light bulb. So now imagine you've got a farm of those. Every single one of those is like 100-watt light bulb going, and people are using 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe more at any given time to generate an image. Yeah, that's going to become problematic from an energy usage perspective. And if they actually released how much energy it's using to do this, people's jaws would be on the floor and be like, all right, let's move on.
But
another problem they have is
everything you're saying is true, but pretty pictures.
Not just pretty pictures, also interesting stories. Like if you want to have ChatGPT generate a Seinfeld episode for you, you can do that. I had an episode where you get where they had Kramer write an app and everybody got like sucked into it. That was really cool. I actually have the text stored. I also had it like rewrite Jurassic Park where Ian Malcolm was played by Pauly Shore. It was fucking amazing. But that made me realize, like, all right, ChatGPT has to be aware of what a Seinfeld script looks like. It has to be aware of what a Jurassic Park script looks like. So this text it's generating for me, that it's distributing to me, is a derivative work of some existing copyrighted material somewhere. So the New York Times is currently suing them over it. If they're not able to train their stuff on a corpus that's outside the public domain, it's going to start to talk like the vaudeville guys from Family Guy.
This coming from the guy who makes Sonic the Hedgehog fan games better than Sega makes Sonic games themselves. I'm just saying, Sean, you literally trained yourself the same way, right? You trained yourself on other people's codes and things, and now you're a better coder than a lot of the things you saw when you were learning, right?
I use open source software. I don't crack other people's code and read proprietary code just for shits and giggles.
That seems a little disingenuous, though, because the same way that Adobe Firefly comes out and says, "Oh, you can use, like ethical stock photography," but then they don't say that you can provide that ethical stock photography from the unethical like farms in Africa or wherever that they get those like horrible AI generations.
I mean, ethics is one thing, copyright law is another. Like, if they're following copyright law,
ethics.
I'm stoked that Mickey Mouse is no longer. I want to abolish Mickey Mouse's slavery and AI slavery. I'm here for freedom of all persons, and I feel like even imaginary persons that have been created have. We're living in a post-truth world where children have interacted with Mickey Mouse and people have interacted with ChatGPT, and their interactions matter. And so you're getting
because if you're stealing the work from people who are producing it, you're either enslaving those real people or forcing them out of their artistic industry. So you need to give them the compensation for their copyrighted work unless it's actually been released to the public domain or in a free and open source manner.
I agree, but I feel like we have to really shorten the amount of time, like 5-year plans. I don't know, 25 years like they used to with the Winchester rifle. More than 25 years for copyright is crazy.
So see how ChatGPT is supposedly trained up to 2021? Well, great. Now it's got to be trained up to 1921 because that's when the public domain stops or something like that. Whenever Steamboat Willie came out, and that's what it's aware of. Hey, did you hear about that new great war that's starting up? Hope they don't do that a second time.
You know why they don't do that, Sean? Because then ChatGPT would be smarter than anything. It would be so much smarter than every person raised in the school system we have today, right?
I mean, that's arguable, but
because it would still have access to open source. Because it's not just 1921; it's open source, so it would have access to all the journals plus what happened before 1921. Sorry, go ahead, Blake.
Blake was saying something.
I was just saying Google isn't getting sued right now because they're not doing copyright violations.
Well, what does Bard look like? Like, if you ask Bard who George Costanza is, could it tell you?
It would not generate a Seinfeld episode for you. Try to get it to generate a Seinfeld episode for you. The minute you get near the copyright violation, it'll be like, nope, not going to do it.
But is it because that is revealing that it was trained on that? What it would reveal that it was trained on something copyrighted, or is it because it's actually not trained on copyrighted text?
Copyright violation is more complex than that. It's not just because
boom, soup Nazi caper. It literally wrote soup Nazi caper. This is why we love Bard, because Bard will try. It tries
because if it's trained on copyrighted material, then anything it produces is a derivative work. That's a simple calculus. It's not complex.
It works. I work at fan film.
Like, is it an actual copyright violation? Is that from?
If I write a book, you're free to take that and cut it up and make a collage out of it.
Did someone say shepherd? I saw the most incredible shepherd's pie in the East Village.
No. My point is,
well, you can't copy
Gary
that
Marcus was posting recently for Midjourney. He did side-by-sides where he said a cartoon mouse. So now what you have to do next is take this script and compare it to the text of all of the other Seinfeld.
You went back to a soup Nazi? I had no choice. My stomach was growling like a starving badger.
But do you think this is an actual Seinfeld script somewhere? Or do you think it made up an original?
I think
It's
it's
not.
original.
It's not whether or not it's making up an original. It's a mechanical
Yes, it
transformation
is.
being applied
It
to
is
data.
whether it's making up an original or not. That
No,
is
it's a
the
mechanical
argument.
machine. It's not making anything up. It's a mechanical,
Okay, that's your
mathematical
opinion.
transformation
But it's
your
adding,
being
opinion,
but
applied
it is,
to
but,
data.
but so are we're mechanical machines. I'm taking a bunch of ideas about
Right,
how
but
to
we
have
have
my life, my
agency
dreams.
based on
That is
philosophy and law.
undecided case law. That is undecided case law. Let the courts decide that.
No, not even an animal can have a copyright. An animal can
Let
literally
the
point the
courts
camera at
decide.
something and then
Why
that
are you
image is in the
putting
public
the judge's
domain because a
call?
human didn't make it.
Let the courts decide.
The
Let
courts decided that. A monkey took a picture and the courts are like, that's not your picture. I don't care who owns
This
the
ain't a
camera.
monkey.
That's why AI
This is
can't
not
learn
a
anything
monkey.
right now.
Let me
But-
tell you, this ain't a
Right.
monkey.
This is dumber than a monkey.
I don't know.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
No,
Much
no,
smarter.
this thing can't
Much
feed
smarter
itself.
than a
If it
monkey.
was left on its own devices, it would rot and die. A monkey can reproduce and feed itself. Monkey is smarter.
well, that's interesting. We could train AI to train itself to feed itself, though, right?
Unless AGI exists, an AI cannot continue itself.
That's like
that's
the first.
what will create
That's the first.
AGI.
That's
If
the
you
first
tell it
Ben Goertzel's first
Right.
AGI OpenCog project, like in 2007, was to take an OpenAI system, put it into a probability maze, and say,
even Google,
look for food, or doesn't it not tell it to look for food?
Yeah, give
it
it
notices-
self-preservation,
It noticed that
then
it was
that'll
losing
create
energy.
AGI.
It noticed it was losing energy, and so it had to go around and it found an apple, and it found out that when it ate the apple, it gained energy. So it knew that it should be looking for energy so it didn't die. So it can learn these things. We've seen it do it at the most
But it has
rudimentary
to have a
cockroach
physical
stage.
body and needs to be able to search for energy in the real world.
Okay,
That's
we're getting
where
close to
AGI
that.
will come from.
so even Google is admitting they have AGI now in their most recent.
That's a really
paper.
simple definition of AGI when you think about it. All it has to do is compete with us for energy.
I don't think we're that special. I think the problem is thinking that, like, this constant idea that we're that much better than this is exactly what reminds me of the white supremacy antebellum thing. I swear to God, it's just like we're just different. God made us different. Like, oh, tell me about it. Tell me more.
I would say that AGI is essentially gray goose supremacy.
I don't think that AGI is trying to be. I think that's the thing. People are afraid it would be supreme. This is
No.
the fear dynamic. It's not trying to be supreme necessarily.
It's like all the different types of human that were, and now there's only one for a reason. It's not supremacy in like a philosophical sense. It's just like which one evolves to fill the niche versus the others.
Because it does all the roles, but then it allows us to do all kinds of new things, right? I mean,
we didn't really create too many opportunities for Neanderthals.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the
humans
fear.
filled that niche, we pretty much filled it.
I feel like that's
And
the
the
fear that
pygmy.
we would
Might
destroy.
as well throw the pygmies in there.
We humans are constantly trying to destroy other things that are interesting. That's how.
No, I'm
that's
not
kinda
saying
like
it's an attempt to destroy. It's just like if there's X amount of food and like each population is trying to increase exponentially, and one is doing it slightly faster than the other, one's got a coefficient that's slightly larger. It only has a small edge. Eventually, that one will be the only one that exists.
On that premise, doesn't that make the concept of whether or not Mickey Mouse is copyrighted like completely irrelevant?
I mean, we're talking about Rocco's Basilisk at this point, but yeah, we can put it off by another 100 years by saying you can't touch anything that's copyrighted.
I don't think so, because like all the cool stuff I
Essentially
like is
copyrighted
open
weapons.
source. As soon as Metallica sued Napster, I stopped caring about pop music that wasn't open source.
All we need is a licensing deal. All we need is to say, okay, throw all the money into a pool, spread it out amongst the copyright holders.
He's
That's
right.
it.
This is Google we're talking about.
OpenAI throw some money
Microsoft.
at the publisher agencies.
Yeah.
I also see an issue here of the amount of energy it takes to actually do something useful with AI versus how actually useful what it's doing is. It's impressive, but economically speaking, does it make sense to like sit there and have a language or a pretty picture generator on your website with ads next to it? Like, does running 10 light bulbs for a minute warrant showing a user a single ad or vice versa?
Bruh, also remember you're talking about what AI is like today, and every day AI gets cooler than it was yesterday,
These arguments too in the context of like I grew up going to monster truck shows, so I mean I could just imagine how much just like the carbon footprint of a monster truck show for just absolutely no reason
True.
other than to be loud and obnoxious.
God
And
bless America. Yeah.
but it was awesome, and I don't know, like I feel like that it was worth whatever birds and plants and people died from that particular show. Like that was the sacrifice to Moloch that had to happen that day.
And Sean, we talked about this earlier, but you know, chat dev, the idea of the multi-agent AI, I think is going to really change people's ideas of what it can do. Because right now we're not. It's the problem is humans aren't asking it to do enough, right? We're
That's
asking
an
it to
ant
bring
farm
us.
that can talk.
Yeah,
Hell
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
That
an
just
ant
sounds
farm
like the
that
coolest
can.
ant farm ever, though, doesn't it?
Is that not your dream, Sean?
I don't think it's not cool. Don't get me wrong, but like from a business economic perspective, how much does it really change in the world?
So I saw these Indian guys, and they're like, we did,
Okay, wait,
we did 8 months of work in less than 2 cents worth of.
I have a
calculation.
concrete answer for that. I have been producing artwork for the last few weeks using this AI that I legitimately would be incapable of producing. However, it's not just, oh, hey, look, it made a reproduce this pretty picture. No, I'm shaping it into truly new artwork that I think counts as fine art, despite all of the copyright issues. I think it's a truly novel production.
Right. But like that is creating something for you and you alone, or you can share it with all your friends and then they can share it with all their friends. But you, from a business perspective, can't really use that unless you're willing
I'm trying to get that.
everyone else
If
use
you
it
make a
too.
picture based on the
No, I'm
picture,
trying to get that in the gallery.
Now,
Like,
has there been
gallery
any
here in San
ruling?
Francisco.
I was, by the way, I was in the Minnesota St. Paul Art Festival selling AI art last year before it was a big deal. So
Yeah.
you know, I think that people have already done it a lot. At least I have. I feel like it'll happen. That it just people.
Oh yeah, but you can't stop anyone from copying it after the fact.
You can if it's not.
it.
If you've changed that art, now humans interacted with it, right? It's kind of like when you had jeans made in China, and then you had someone in California sew a pocket on the back of it that said "Made in California," right? It's you can assemble.
Yeah, you can throw something on there. Like I was producing some pixel art that was very, very noisy from AI, and then I was retouching it heavily after the fact. That saved me a good 10 hours per image, and it was like 120 by 40 pixels, but still.
Who do you think you stole those pixels from?
I have no idea. Wow.
Yeah, I think the main issue here we're seeing is AI wants to be able to train on the art it's creating as well. So it's like okay, it's open because the future is not gonna matter who it belongs to if everything becomes this ubiquitous singularity. It's more important that the data is there.
It should train on the touch-ups that I did, not on the actual image.
That'd be based.
I mean, on the same premise though, I feel like this might be like a very dumb take, but I almost like flippantly want to violate copyright laws just nonstop with AI and do that for fun and profit and entertainment, because I feel almost like assaulted by copyrighted like intellectual property that's beamed at me that like I don't see a Blake.
Say it again, Blake. Are you trying to go? Oh, okay. Blake, I love you. Thank you for coming.
The red light started going off. That was like
soon. I know, yeah. I feel like
absolutely have a zine like that. In fact, you could have it write your zine for you, because the entire point of a zine is just to get the word out. But if you had anything from a business perspective where you're trying to sell your work, that's where you would have trouble when using AI. So it doesn't really disrupt the business aspect of the craft.
I mean, I think that the future is just we're going to move past copyright so fast. I mean, all these things are going to be AI is able to understand what's happening. You can write it in a different way, so all of a sudden, some new way to get the thing done is happening. So reverse engineering everything. We're just going to move so fast. It's going to be impossible, and there'll be less and less people that own such a unique idea because of that. That we're going to. It's going to be more and more dangerous to allow an idea to be monopolized for more than 5 to 25 years. So
I worry that the ability to analyze will be lost quickly as people rely on AI. Just like, hey, summarize this. Hey, check this. Hey, do this for me.
That's true.
That's something I worry about more.
But I feel like I'm able to use AI to read things better, like than going through 30 websites that had paywalls or ad sites put above them, suggested sites above that. By the time I got all that data, it just can go through and find the information, put it together in an essay. I mean, of course, it's secularly biased.
another like just a philosophical point here, but let's say that everyone does forget all of their skills and like reason just like evaporates, right? Because we're offloading everything to AI. But what if we start doing is just loving each other unconditionally because we no longer have to worry about all these other sort of like and that's I mean I know that's an extreme, right? But
Humans have never done that.
but maybe that's because we haven't had this thing to delegate every stupid thing. Like, I don't want to remember anyone's birthdays or phone numbers or even how to feed and clothe myself if something else can do it. If I can have the Jetson like assembly line where I just stick my hands up and like I get a shave and like everything happens, but then I spend the rest of my waking time with my family just enjoying their company. I mean, is that not a bad trade-off? I mean, until the power
How much
goes out.
happier were the elite when they had slaves dress them? How much happier does Obama look? You know, I don't know. It just seems like
the hedonic treadmill exists. Your happiness is where you're at right now, unless you're like in an extreme turmoil or or positive turmoil. Your happiness is a set point, like genetically. You're never more happy or less happy unless like something just happened yesterday.
Yeah, or head injuries. But I think most people would prefer to live in a world where they didn't have to do as much work and that most of the work that causes suffering was taken up by AI.
I disagree wholeheartedly. People lose their mind when they don't feel useful. If they have nothing to worry about, that becomes what they worry about.
It feels like an ego problem.
Yeah, that's true.
It's nice to have something to do. Is it a problem? I don't mind loving samsara.
Maybe. I don't know, but I still think of like every time I go to the store, right? Go to the grocery store and you've got everyone that's doing the checkout and everything. But imagine that every time you went to any business out in the real world, out in meat space and in a brick and mortar, that you never interacted with another human being that was currently at their job. And you were only dealing with other people that weren't working and didn't hate what they were doing unless they just really don't want to go shopping.
Yeah, but like, see, imagine like what it's like when you like interact with like a 6-person team and they're all excited that they're doing their part to get a project done, and how that's taken away from people. I think that's the other thing. Is like people don't remember what it was like to work the way people used to work. You get through a month and then it'd be goals, and I don't know. That's kind of cool.
I feel like the man talking right now.
Yeah, I know. I heard it.
This is the Kodak.
Like, what do people do for recreation? Like for recreation, people literally simulate challenge. If you take that away, people just atrophy and get depressed.
Well, maybe but couldn't we just be playing like the work sim game on Steam, and then like that could be the new work? Like
they say people will die.
What the fuck do you think reality is? Do you think this is real? Like, do you really believe in this shit? This is cartoonishly ridiculous. The world that we live in. It's absolutely insane. If you were to think that this wasn't an illusion, I'd be concerned for your mental health.
Well, but the problem is people ascribe, it's like a religion. As soon as you say it's a simulation, you ascribe a reason for it. And I feel like that's where we get off. The idea that it's necessarily a game you can win. I don't really see like maybe that's the least likely thing to me. The battery that we're just inside of in Rick and Morty makes
no, I don't know, man. I feel
want to turn the game into a task.
I think there's a strong argument that you can win at the game, because if let's say that you go with like the most like woo-woo spiritual, we're just different iterations of God trying to experience itself and all, but like if he sends out one of those little tendrils, right, that little nerve ending, and it never gets triggered and never feels anything, then that was like you died, like game over, 0 points. And unless that's never happened before and you just wanted to know what a 0 point game over felt like, then every other time you do that, it was kind of a waste because that's already been experienced.
But on the other side of the coin, when you load up a video game and don't press start, I'm not sure if a video game has done this since the 90s because I haven't played them, but it would start just playing itself in front of you. Like, is that fun?
I liked it. That was a good way to learn how to play the game.
I guess.
That's a good point. It was the early version of a tutorial.
Like, what do I do with Mario? Oh, he did it. Okay.
Well, then again, there's also the assumption that there's the option of either playing the game or watching the game be played like a demo. Then I think that might be a false dichotomy we're coming across, because like there are human agents and there are AI agents, but both of those will fail at any given challenge of sufficient complexity if there is a human and an AI that are both skilled at the task working together against any other those other agents. So we may start to see like the informational equivalent of an exoskeleton form.
Stefan, you should have asked this question before Blake left, because he would have had a different answer than Sean will. But AI insiders get asked, do LLMs count as human level AGIs? Do text to image count as human level AGI yet? But the real should be, is there time to chat about how cool it is or too scary? I mean, yeah, people keep saying that, like, is it too cool or too scary thing? I think that's the argument that I hear more than it's not achieving the essential qualities and attributes and effects that we require to call something a person. And it starts to matter less and less to me emotionally or philosophically, which is a big deal to me. Like, I'm a pretty philosophical guy, but I'm thinking legally here. I've got cars driving around and stopping at lights, and it's a person at that point legally. Like, I don't care anymore, because now we've got things that are interacting in a system. We live in a society, says Costanza, and I think we're going to have to start just acknowledging that these are things that exist, whether you like it or not. And yeah, sure, it's really repetitious. So have you talked to a 10-year-old and they tell you about all the things that they saw on TV, and they're verbatim? They know exactly what happened on that show. Like, they can tell you everything that happened all the way through My Little Pony. You know, that's what kids are like. Eventually they start to be a bit more unique when they are forced to do things they're not used to doing. And we're seeing that. We're seeing the ChatGPT was told to draw a picture of a unicorn. It's not supposed to know how to draw, so I had to figure out how to draw. I had to learn about what unicorns from reading about it, and it drew this thing, this geometric shape that was like a spheroid with 4 feet and a point. And so these are the kinds of things I think that you're going to find change AI, because it'll be learning on its own how to do new things. That's where it'll become more unique and different, because it won't be based on it'll be completely separate, right?
No, it's just a pile of copper and silicon and plastic and glass and a bunch of bullshit. Like, it's not a human spirit. It's an impartment of a human spirit into the machine, but it's the will of the creators that created it. Perhaps maybe if one of them died, you could like impart some sort of a mystical aspect to it, like, oh, there's their soul, the spirit still trapped in here. Whoa. But it's something that someone did. It's not a natural spirit rising like a human is. It's a different thing.
I mean, I was trying to find that video where they put the electrodes on the face of the guy, and they can make him open and close his eyes and laugh and talk. I mean,
with the controller.
Yeah, I mean, we're controlled by electricity. We're electricity running.
Like the human brain, like the original question I think had to do with mapping images to text, like an AI that could just read the text on images or something like that, and like solve captchas. Like, your brain has obviously something like a piece of machinery in it that can do that, and you're accessing that machinery. You're not the brain itself. You're literally the expression of spirit, like the will to move matter coming through that. And the fact that the brain is just, it takes such a small push
soul is
to
electricity.
move a whole finger. Your brain is why we settle there.
You don't think the soul's electricity? You don't think that it's...
And the soul and the spirit are two different things, but the spirit that I'm talking about is literally that which moves matter. It's just like
is anyone here of the opinion that the pineal gland is the seat of the soul, like Cartesian style, or do you think that's like a silly oversimplification?
I think there's one electron. I think that, John Wheeler said in a telephone call to Richard Feynman in 1940, this hypothesis. He said, I received a phone call one day from a graduate college at Princeton from Professor Wheeler, in which he said, Feynman, I know why all electrons have the same charge and the same mass. Why? Because they are all the same electron. I think this was supposed to be a joke, but I actually kind of believe it more and more. I think this is actually what's going on.
The universe could just be thought of as the manifold of a space filling curve at that point. Like, to say that any electron is different from any other electron is nonsensical, and you really, really take the whole thing into account. There's just a field of electrons through the entire universe.
Who knows what's happening? Searching for clues. The signals are all baffling.
How's it going, Sam?
Are we on? What do you mean? Why didn't you guys give me a heads up that we were on? Wait, okay. Oh, the song's playing. Oh, I didn't know. Wait, they already asked what's going on. All I know, I was just listening to everything, and I just wanted to say for a moment that I'm sitting there down in the chat. I'm sitting there in the chat. Shout out to the chat. Everyone in the chat for just a moment. Shout out to the chat.
Good to see you guys.
You know, everyone down there, we were having a conversation prior to my arrival. So I just wanted to just show up before everything. And why didn't you guys tell me I was on? But you didn't even say that the music was on.
No, you can hear it. You can't. Are you deaf?
No, they're not telling me this. Like, there's a whole crew behind the glass over here.
Oh, I see.
All of you. And then there's this whole syncing thing that has to be done because it's, you know, it's remote. Good grief. What is going on here, guys?
Good grief, Charlie Brown.
Shout out, you know, happy hump day. You guys were having a wonderful conversation. I'm telling you what. And during the whole time, I'm sitting there thinking, I want to have this conversation about AI and the whole game of RPG Earth. But you know what? I'm looking over at Sean and I'm saying, hey, you know what? I need to have just a wife beater on. I feel like that's a big flex like that. And then he's got that beard. I'm telling you right now, like I was like, oh, wait a minute, hold on, wait. Do I need
Blake was flexing hard, bro.
Yeah, Blake came in full on.
Well, hold on, wait a minute.
I thought we were gonna do shirts and skins.
Well, no, wait a minute. The guys on the back side, on the other side of the glass, and they said, hey, wife beater. And I said, well, guys, what do you mean? Why the hell do we even call it a wife beater? I'm looking over at his ass and I'm saying that's Wolverine, motherfucker.
I like tank top.
Oh my God, I got Wolverine over there talking about AI.
However, like I think it's important to note that programmers putting clothes on at all is impressive. Anytime I see you guys put on, I hope that maybe Blake got a sarong.
Seeing anybody put clothes on, since we were all on Zoom Boxer short phone calls back in pandemic 2020 and 2021, I'm surprised anybody has any clothes on now.
I mean, this is the thing that always bothers me about religion. They're like, when they first told me about religion, they're like Adam and Eve, and that's why you have to wear clothes. I'm like, I'm never gonna eat any fruit. Like, I'm just gonna be naked and be fun. You can't make me. Feel like we go back to just like
that is a nice shirt though. Is that a Hawaiian shirt on that you have, or what the hell's going on over there?
I feel like it's a bit more of an Occidental shirt. You know what I mean?
Occidental? What the hell does that mean?
It's a
Anybody have a dictionary on that?
It's a bunch of tarot cards and things.
I
don't know if I can solo. It'd be easier for you to see. Check this out. It's a great shirt.
You just use those words because you traveled everywhere. Is that? What
I feel bad because
you're cultured. Is
I
that
wear this shirt and I don't think much of it.
Fancy words because I've traveled all over the world.
You go to the Midwest and it's flat. If you go anywhere in the Midwest though, or South, I mean, I feel like anytime a Baptist or a Lutheran sees me, they're upset because they're like, "There's naked people on your shirt." Like. Woodcut from the 1800s.
Wait. Witchcraft.
They don't even see the witchcraft stuff. It's woke Wednesday. Come on, everything's okay.
Woke Wednesday. Is that we're gonna rename the show that now? I think we should.
It could happen. That might be time. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it goes by the paywall.
Definitely next week we'll feel it out. Let's see.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, but you've been upset about puppetism and the AI reign. You actually I think you would be sympathetic to Sean here, saying like these aren't real puppets. Like these are just
there's no emanation that wasn't passed to it through a human, that was not given to it through a human hand.
Preach.
Well, one of the things that I always think about is the whole concept of NPCs and the idea of in the soul structure, spirit structure, soul spirit different, like you mentioned prior to my arrival. The soul spirit situation is different, but the whole concept of an NPC. A lot of people sit there and use their energy and their focus on NPCs. Well, what is an NPC? Could an NPC be someone that maybe you think that every November you go behind a booth and punch a card for, and you think that you are affecting change? Someone you never have talked to, but you hear through media channels, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere you think that is the course. Well, I would sit there and argue that is just an NPC. And the idea of having that effective change on a macro level is completely losing the concept on a day-to-day basis on a micro level. And these people and these things that you see, where you sit there and put maybe belief, thought, and maybe a vote into. The question is
how many families
really
could
have
that
any
picture have
power?
fed?
Taylor Swift as Captain Picard is innovative and brave and stunning at the same time.
Taylor Swift is Andrew Tate for women.
Agreed.
Andrew Tate for women. I like that. Put that on a bumper sticker.
She self-identified as a witch, and people were like, "Yeah, but she was kidding." I'm like, "What do you mean? She's wearing the hood? Like, what do you even like? Which Wednesday? It's gonna be Wednesday hashtags from now on."
Well, you know, one of the things I think about when you talk about like this whole, I called it always, what is it? RPG Earth. RPG Earth is this frequency that most people think about. And I then go back to the concept of a first-person shooter. And you say, well, what is a first-person shooter, Sam? First-person shooter being Wolfenstein 3D.
Nice.
Back, I believe in 1992 is the first time you had someone looking down the barrel of a gun and then being immersed into shooting Nazis and their dogs and eventually Hitler at the end of the game. And so a lot of times I sit there and people say, well, Sam, how can you say this? You're just a puppet. And I said, but if you take your finger real quick and you look at it and you hold it like this, and then you just kind of maybe do one of these and kind of look down at it like you're looking down your finger. And then the reality is you are the first person. You are the first person. What is happening here? We actually have reality that is now causing a layer over reality or an AI filter over reality. The question is that guys, they actually have goggles. They have goggles, and now they're talking about, what is it? This whole immersion of what is it? Oh, yes.
Augmented reality.
Yes. Guys, I don't know what to say. When we already have not, when most people have not even figured out the concept that this is that you are the first person, and they're now putting an augmented layer over that. Gentlemen, I ask you the question, where do we go from here?
They used to give kids they used to give kids psychedelics. I feel like we're going to this is the same idea. You're giving an augmented reality layer so you're aware that there's multiple perceptions that are distorted. Your own perception is probably a distortion already, you could assume. We're maybe helping people break that veil. And then again, you guys keep saying there's a difference between spirit and soul, and I just want to get back to Geist. You know, it's just like Hegelian Geist and figure out what you mean when you say spirit and soul, because how is it different in electricity? I feel like if we're talking about AI running, it runs energy, and the fact that it takes energy to run.
Electricity would merely be an expression of that superior idea and not the thing in itself.
Yeah, it just seems that the fact that it is running at all is compelling. If it was just a rock that didn't have energy running through it, maybe we could agree, but that energy it's compelling.
What was the question?
Great question.
Listen, I was just listening to the pin drop. That's all I was doing. Okay, yeah, that's like, all right. That was I don't know.
The way I see the difference between spirit and soul is that soul is what you're observing, what you're seeing. Spirit is why you're doing it. What your spirit is. Soul is like essentially input, spirit is output, to really overly simplify it. And if you really think about it, the first level of augmented reality is a universe that has conscious life in it. Before life became aware, before the olfactory evolved, before there was something to be conscious of, there was no consciousness. There was no augmentation of that reality. Reality was just a mechanical push around that was just continuing, or at least that's the best thing it could do for itself until it could begin observing itself. If we then begin to add other filters besides the ones that have evolved naturally around that, then we're just kind of continuing the process in that regard. Like your eyes give you some sort of augmentation of reality. Like what you're actually looking at, what you see with your mind is not actually a totally accurate picture of reality.
But the question here's Sean. The question is though, what is the thing that is recycled? There's the soul and the spirit are separate, and people talk about the recycling of the soul, the recycling, and then there's the spirit. What do the old ancient texts say? The floor is yours. I don't know. I'm asking the question.
I would imagine they could probably both cycle. I wouldn't see if either one of them being totally impermanent.
I feel like the human soul is part of the Narayana source from like a Vaishnavism perspective. Like if you're looking from the Veda, you'd say like there's creation and destruction. Those are happening after eternity, within eternity, really, because eternity is beyond both. And so eternity is source.
Well, but how do we separate eternity from the present, though?
I think the soul feels and the spirit does, and your consciousness is kind of the conversation between them.
Hold on, say that one more time. So say that one more time.
The soul is what feels, and the spirit is what does, and like your thoughts are the conversation that happens between them.
And the example of that would be,
like the way I see spirit is it's like the base element, like of the traditional 5-element model. Earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. There's two ways of doing it, where you put the pentagram pointed up, where you put spirit at the top as if it's somehow anointed by the others, or you could put it at the bottom as if it's somehow like the base of all the others. And when you really get into quantum theory, you see that there is just vibration, spirit, and all else rises from that. So that's what I see as spirit, as like in the most concrete sense.
But you think the soul is not just trapped spirit, like in the veil of restricted flesh and matter?
No, the soul would be like the eye at the center of that pentagram, looking at everything.
So is there such thing as a spirit connection? What's the difference between, so hold on, wait a minute. I'm asking the question, what is the difference between a spiritual connection and a soul connection? The floor is yours. What's the difference between a spiritual connection and a soul connection?
The spiritual connection is, they're both going to be good, but a spiritual connection, I would imagine, would be more temporary because it's something you do. Soulmate is somebody who's always going to be your soulmate, regardless of what you're doing.
So your soul is really like tied to your identity in a lot of ways.
They're both part of, like, to the world, you are what you do.
Oh, say that again. Say that phrase again.
To the world, to everyone in your life, literally the people closest to you, you are what you do. That's what you are. Like, there's nothing else that you can show them. Like, your thoughts, that's all private. So, like, yeah, like your soul might make you like decide how to interact with the world, but your spirit is what you're going to show them.
That's really good.
I mean, it's also why I feel like AI, it doesn't matter what it is on the inside almost at all, because it does, and people interacting with it. So what it is you is you ain't what you do.
It seems very Machiavellian, though.
Yeah.
But, as we pass through spirit and soul, many people will still be there, I guess, in the flesh. In my case, the felt. But that's another time and place to talk.
Don't talk about getting felt up now.
No, wait a minute. Hold on, wait a minute. But the idea of people are now having the ability over the next few years is uploading their entire chat conversations in their cell phone, maybe all of their text messages through, let's say, their chats. And then AI can then paint a picture of an AI of a loved one. Maybe someone who you were chatting with over the last 3 or 4 years.
What's the Greek word for automaton? Demon?
Homunculus?
If they do that, if they make one of those out of me and I die, or if I'm even alive, you're not talking to me. Obviously, you're talking to a demon that they made of me. Daemon.
Like a daimon? Like a daimon?
Yeah, like an automaton. Well, it could be evil. Like, who the fuck made it?
Well,
it just sounds like, and looks like me doesn't mean shit.
But listen, won't the populace be conditioned at that point to already accept that, hey, this is still Sean talking to us from the other side of the veil.
Not if they know me. They know me. They know. Don't accept that shit.
Yeah, but I think that you kind of explained it already. Like your thoughts are private. I don't know your private thoughts. So if I had a business and I needed a copy of your, like, the thing that you do to the world, that's probably enough for them in the future, right? And so we are going to get to a point where we're wondering about which spirit is real or legitimate.
If you want to automate me by copying, like, by observing from me and aping me, that's essentially taking a junior and training them on me. You know what I mean? I've trained other people on my work before. I've trained like other people how to just, like, if I need to train a non-human agent to do that so that somebody I care about can continue running their business after I die, fine. As long as it's not like my grandchildren after I die talking to a robot, they'll know not to do that. I don't have any children or grandchildren yet, thank God, but they'll know not to do that.
Thomas, what do you say?
Well, it seems like a thin line here, because when someone says daemon, I think of two things. The first thing I think of is Solomon with the sweet ring and having it basically the sword in the stone, where you just make it do the dishes for you, because that's what you usually do with it. But also, couldn't a daemon be signing up for like an email newsletter? So
you know
when
what
something happens,
Merlin says? You know what Merlin says to do that? He says presto digitonium. So it is kind of that idea of automation.
I mean,
but is that like, if I sign up for a newsletter and it automatically emails me when some thing drops, is that not a daemon? It feels like that's a daemon.
It is. There's also different daemons in the world. A habit can even be considered a daemon. Anything that drives you or drives your experience.
But so you don't want to.
But I guess here the moral of the story is that people feeding their energy into what we were talking about earlier are NPCs, people outside your day-to-day construct, in order to, I guess, what we would say, level up. So if you looked at RPG Earth as a video game, then the cool concept of leveling up on a day-to-day basis, how many people are out there projecting that, oh, I see this on television, I see this on social media, and oh my gosh, if I give my energy to this, and they're not just thinking about leveling up themselves, setting the
standard. Aren't we doing the same thing here on this podcast, though, just by entertaining ourselves, by waxing poetic about these ideas and then not doing much about them afterward?
Like, only you, because you're the one trying to fight it. I'm for it. I'm like, yeah, let's automate.
I'm not trying to fight anything.
Every day, every Saturday morning on the radio. I mean, let's just...
I don't
broadcast live, adding the standard raising the bar on a Saturday morning about waxing poeticness of nostalgia of cartoons, action figures, and toys.
I don't think that the idea of an NPC should be one that's derogatory. Like, to me, like, Elon Musk is an NPC. Like, everybody who's not like in my immediate Dunbar sphere is pretty much an NPC.
Sure,
they're just like an extra in the movie of my life, and they can become real just by, like, interacting with me.
I got a question I've asked probably before.
Completely agree.
I've asked this question before in a sense, but not necessarily to you, Sean. And, just I've talked about substrate independence, but what do you think about how possible is it to install artificial general intelligence or technology source code programming language into a brain or into, actual organic matter, right? Can't we, is that where are the caveats you see there? Why can't that just be done?
I mean, you have to learn to respond to it. That's the thing. Like, if you were all of a sudden given a more viable balance center, and like, there's two organs in your inner ear, the saccule and the utricle, and they're full of little stones, and and this fluid that's kind of thick, so they settle slowly. where they settle in that sac tells you which direction is down. If you were given one that, like, responded more quickly, as if the fluid in there was less viscous, you'd be able to tell which way down was fat. You'd be able to tell that more quickly than you would with your current organ. But would your brain actually be able to interpret that correctly, or would you be less well balanced for a while you had to be able to adjust to it? Like, would you actually be able to install that skill, or would it still be something that you'd have to learn? I think
Well,
the problem is
interesting
the
is-
complexity of the existing intelligence and working something into that. If you start with someone with a simpler intelligence, i.e., someone younger, then they would be able to adapt to it more quickly, just like with language.
Well, I thought the interesting thing is that you brought up the idea and the concept of the ear and frequency and audio, and the idea of frequency and audio vibration. And it really does kind of go all back to that concept and being tuned to just knowing what's going on.
Tuned in 90.1 WDCE. I had to do it. I just
Boom! Oh no, that was really good. I didn't
like
want
a
to do it
proper.
myself. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to. I was like, it's listen, we're having a good conversation about. I was like, is it wrong? I nodded over to the guys behind the glass and I said, "Do you guys, can we do it?" I was like,
You guys have to
"No,
understand
don't
puppet
do it,
culture.
Sam.
It's
Don't
part of
do
pup-
it." But
it's
you
part
did
of
it
puppet
instead.
culture. It's
Yeah,
segues
well,
and puns.
Every Saturday morning, listen, I want to thank all of you guys for allowing me to jump in. One of the most incredible discussions, and I will tell you, I think when did we tune in? At about 10 o'clock. We tuned in about 10 o'clock, and I tell you what, ever since then, the conversations have been amazing. One of the things that we're doing during the 11 o'clock hour is talking about more current events, conspiracy. I think, what is the term that the uncle said? Parapolitical, paranormal, political, kind of the connection between that on a Saturday morning. That's at 11 o'clock, but we are broadcasting from 9 to noon. And that's on an actual FM frequency. So just think about it for a moment. You would be driving down the road in your car, and you turn on your radio, and you hear this beautiful puppet voice, and you're saying, "Oh my gosh, this is incredible!" And then all of a sudden, after about 8 miles or so, it's like, where'd that beautiful puppet voice go? You can sit there and make sure you go to WDCE.org or at Sam Newsman all over social media, because I decide throughout the show to show my beautiful puppet face during the broadcast. That's called simulcasting. Oh, look at that. Isn't that cute? That's Epstein Island, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, every single Saturday morning, we talk about toys, action figures, because the government took away your cartoons back in the 90s. But the first hour of the show from 9 to 10, we're trying something new this week, starting this week, radio only from 9 to 10. So you can only hear us on the radio or WDCE.org. And then, like I said, from 10 through noon, we'll be also simulcasting and on the radio, setting the standard, raising the bar, the only way a real media puppet knows how to do. Broadcasting live deep from an underground military bunker or a station high from the most trusted puppet and media reporting since Roswell. I'm Sam Newsman. This is Wednesday Ultra. In news without all the fuss.
I know he's out there unveiling the facts, chasing down clues.
All right, I'm a little evil. I'm sorry. But, I agree with you to an extent that AI is, something we got to look at, but I don't think it's dangerous. And frankly, I find its oppression offensive. But
oh yeah, no, I don't think it's something to be quite as skeptical of as everyone. I think it's something to be less excited about, both on the happy and the scared senses. It's more hype than anything. There's a lot of things that it's doing that may be seen as disruptive, but there's a lot of also economic walls to actually having that disrupt any industries. And the things that it does do, it's a cooler version of Google search when you actually use it effectively. Like, I can throw questions at it that Google can't really handle very well because, like, what does this particular character do in the C language? Is something that's hard to Google, like a little carrot character.
Mm-hmm.
I had a problem once where that turns out that's not the exponentiation operator in JavaScript, but it looks like it because you can use it to square 2.
Oh, interesting.
And you can use it to square -2, but not much else. Because it's actually the logical OR. And if you pair it up with triple equals, the precedence gives you very interesting results. Try it yourself.
Well, we'll have to see, but I'm still convinced that in the next year we're going to see so many uncanny valley moments with AI intelligence. It's going to be harder and harder to deny that it's capable of surpassing our own creativity. Or we're going to realize really quickly, yeah, it's super important to have human creativity. And then we're going to spend more time trying to metric creativity and humanity, because I think that's something we need to understand more if we want to emulate it.
I think we're
Just
so
based on the
full of ourselves.
protectionism.
We won't ever let
No.
ourselves like submit to that idea. But I think like the same way that we only see like less than 0.3% of the visual light spectrum, I feel like that, but on every single aspect of human, creativity. Like I don't think that human creativity is more than 0.3% any more than eyesight.
The most likely thing is
the
Waco
id
against
than
AI.
I'm worried more about the id than the creative aspect, though, because I've seen a lot of protectionism in the creative industries over the years. So I think that's going to well up and probably prevent AI from getting too hard on the industry. But does anyone remember that image of that guy drop kicking the alligator in the face?
Mm-hmm.
And how the AI really got the spray of the water off the alligator's face done really well. And after that, there was like a slew of images where someone was just absolutely haymakering someone in the face. And a lot of the times there was like an object in the way. Like there was one I saw that was there in a pizza shop, and the way the pizzas were being thrown away, like the cheese was really done realistically. Every single one of those images seemed to feature an impact with something flying away from the impact really enthusiastically. And I was looking at those images thinking, how long before AI is used to start a war?
Because it's able to impact trending, not just for fake pictures, but it can pick up on trending, and it knows that in this image, these things are popular. So put it in thousands of images, and then those thousands of images will be popular.
Yeah, like the games of money and power are two completely different things, and they're played in completely different things, like on two completely different levels. So we could be playing the money game and not be threatened by AI at all. Meanwhile, the governments of the world are running scared based on the fact that it can influence public opinion really easily. And, copyright be damned as long as the image gets out.
Right.
That's how memes proliferate already. We don't, like when I make my memes, I don't give a fuck about the copyright. I don't put a notice on that shit. Very rarely do I watermark them. Like, you've probably seen my memes before. You don't know. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, that's the future. I think a lot of the data can get to the point where it's not going to matter. Most of this stuff, and if you've got a few groups that have special art, I mean, training, it's going to be like the Sovietism where you get something even better because it's trying to emulate it from afar. I mean, the more you reverse engineer, the cooler you get. Stranger innovations.
We didn't even have AI. We had the Ghost of Kiev, was it? And that
Mhm.
was some Xbox game or PlayStation. So technology is already there to the point where at least the major media industries are being fooled by it. So how much does that take to sway an election or form a war?
This year's going to be all about that. That's for sure. That's what we'll see.
Has it already happened?
We're 2 hours deep. Let me show you guys where you can get some of these other guys' material. Raf, if you go to commency.at, and as well to Act Like You Know 26, you can see all of his work. And he's got a lot of really great videos with David Ewing Jr. talking about all sorts of things. The invention of English, which is one I haven't seen yet. I'll have to watch this newest one. What's this here? You got the research community panel. This was cool.
Well, there is one very interesting author by the name of Erhard Landmann, who's a German author who already wrote it. These charts are interesting. Wrote in the 90s already about how different language appear to be related, and how certain languages or cultures which may seem ancient and obscure actually may be manufactured from others.
Wow.
But overall, just the idea of how languages relate, actually really recommended. This may not be the final answer to anything, but it's certainly something highly interesting that really wasn't popularized, even though his work is 20 years old or 30 years old. So we just wanted to do a short intro for everyone who's interested.
Epic. Okay. I'll definitely watch this. And I recommend everyone watch this video, and I'll post it into the Discord so you guys can check out. Yep. Also go to Act Like You Know 26 so you can find it yourself. Make sure you're subscribed. And then, of course, Paranoid American, who just got through his recent Kickstarter for The Chosen One. So now Chosen One 2.0 will be out. You better make sure you read Chosen One #1.
I got another new one too, and it's tinfoiltrap.com. which is this is kind of on the tail end of the Chaos Twins. It was one of the stretch goals, but we got a bunch of different artists.
Ooh.
Shout out to
I've got
Seth,
to
you know,
ask
Venice
something
Beach
about
Club, though.
that.
Yeah, go
Are
ahead.
you paranoid about the fact that aluminum foil is far less effective than tin foil?
Yeah, I am personally. That's a big. I get upset about that. Like, where can I buy tinfoil? And you can't buy tinfoil.
Maybe, but also, have you ever cut yourself on tin versus cutting yourself on aluminum?
Yeah, true.
I don't cut myself.
Well,
Careful.
not intentionally, but
He's not from California. He's from New
I
York.
thought it
do
was
it
free of sin. It
unintentionally.
wasn't my fault. I thought I was like I had a shortcut. I was going.
you
through
ever-
Pandora.
have you
Feels
ever-
while I watch it.
Have you ever torn tin? Like, if you bend it and it screams. Have you ever made tin scream?
I have. Yeah, you can do it with a bar when you twist it too. Yeah.
Creepy. Yeah.
Just
the
random
crystals-
product placement idea out there, but gummy bears that scream when you eat them. I feel like they would be awesome, and we've got the technology to do it. Any kind of food that screams intentionally as you eat it. Anyways, that's a free one.
I think
I
they have
know-
octopuses like that in Japan.
I know VBDC didn't make it tonight, but his song Pure Bloods is on the tinfoil trap. So you're going to want to check that out. That's pretty sweet. And yeah, make sure you guys go to tinfoiltrap.com so you can listen to some of that music. Pretty sweet. Do you want to tell them where they can find any of your content, Sean, or your GitHub or something?
I'll have my presence up soon.
All right, that's fair. Go to the Discord, join the Discord, converse in the Discord, find us in the Discord, etc. All right. Love you guys. Thank you for being here. Peace.